Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 4 of the training series. In this section, we're going to discuss how to build a training plan for a client. So let's get into it. The first thing we would need to know is what type of training plan do we want to build? Are we going to be building this training plan based off protocols that were generated from a brain map? Or are we going to do something different? Maybe that's a custom protocol that was recommended, or we're going to start maybe with a single channel SMR. So we're going to go through all the different types of training plans that we have the possibility of building. So before we get into the software, let's take a look at the database and what the database generates as far as protocols we could choose to use for our client. So here we are at newmindmaps.com, and I'm back on that test clients page that we've been working with through the series. So to find the protocols that the map generates, we would need to start by clicking on the tab here. This is Brain Maps. Then we're going to come down and click this View Report button. All right, the next thing we're going to need to click on is this tab labeled Protocols. All right, so here we see two channel protocols based off an eyes open map. Okay, so these two protocols are protocols that we would run if the client chooses to train with their eyes open, generally watching some sort of video. Now we also, if we come down here, we can see protocols from the eyes closed brain map. So we don't see anything here, but if we click on the arrow here, this very first one, that's going to expand it. And now we can see that there are also two recommended protocols if our client chose to train with their eyes closed, and generally that would be listening to music. So that's where we need to start with our clients, is figure out how they're going to train. This is all based off preference. We can train them either way. We'll get results. It's just patient preference. Now, I will say most of your clients, when you give them the option, they'll normally choose to train eyes open with a video just because it's normally more entertaining. So, but they can train either way. We just have to remember that if their eyes are going to be open during the session, we need to only use the two recommended eyes open protocols. And if they choose to train eyes closed, we will only use the eyes closed protocols. And the reason for this is our brains have two different distributions of power. So when our eyes are open, delta is the dominant power, theta is below that, then alpha, then beta. Now when we close our eyes, that power of distribution changes, and now alpha becomes dominant, with theta and beta below that, and delta being the lowest. So these protocols that the database recommends are taking that distribution of power in consideration. So we don't want to set their brain up for an eyes closed distribution if their eyes are open, and vice versa. So just pay close attention to that, and you won't have any problems. So when we get into the software, I'll be showing you how to set up not only a single channel protocol, but a standard 2-channel protocol, and that's what these would be here. Is a standard 2-channel would be just running, let's say, this first one, so 2 channels being channel 1, channel 2, 2 training sites. And then we'll also talk about setting up a session for a 4-channel protocol, which means that we would be using, instead of just the 2 channels, being, let's say, FP1 and FP2, but we would be setting up both of these available protocols. So we would be using 4 active leads. We'd be using our 2 reference, which are ear clips, and then our ground. And we'll talk about that as we get into it. All right, so let's go ahead and bring our software up. So once we're logged into the new Mind Training software, we're going to start by clicking here where it says Bring Training. Okay, so when you first get your software, it's going to look like this. You're not going to have any training plans in the software yet. That's because we have to build them all as we go along. So to start building a new training plan for our clients, we're going to bring our cursor to the upper right corner of the screen. We're going to click on the green button where it says New Training Plan. All right, so now we can start building a plan for our client. So we'll focus first on this left-hand column. So the first thing it wants to know is what client are we going to assign this protocol to? So currently it's saying offline, which means if it's marked as offline, it's not going to assign it to any particular client, which means if you used an offline protocol, it's not going to send any of that data up to the cloud, which then would come back down to your database and populate into a specific client's account. So what we would want to do is click the drop down, and we're going to pick that test client. So now we've told the software that this training plan we're building is for that particular client. The next thing the software wants us to tell it is what type of session are we doing. Now, most of the time when you're building training plans, this is just going to be left as neurofeedback. If we click to get the drop down, we can also see we have the option of neuromeditation. This is a paid course you would need to take that Jeff Tarrant provides. Once you've taken the course, then these neuromeditation protocols would be unlocked and available for your use. And then the other option we see here is coherence. So this is Coburn's 4-channel multi-covariant training protocols. This is something that you will learn down the road. It is recommended that we hold off on running these until we really understand just running a standard 2 or 1-channel protocol. And we need to get those basics in and get that foundation built before we can really get into training coherence. But those are there and available when you're ready. So we're going to put this back to a neurofeedback. Now you've heard me talking about 1-channel, 2-channel, 4-channel protocols. So that's the next option. Is the software wants to know, are we going to be running a single channel protocol, a 2-channel protocol, or a 4-channel? So I'm going to put it back to 1 for now, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The next item the software wants us to tell it is, how is our client going to be training? Will they be training with their eyes in the open state or in the closed state? I'll leave that on open. And then it wants to know the session length. So are we going to be doing a standard 30-minute session? Or possibly are we going to reduce that time based off the client's needs? Generally, for a normal neurofeedback session, 30 minutes is what's recommended. You get into things like alpha theta, you can definitely run those longer. But in the standard neurofeedback protocols, 30 minutes is quite a bit of work to ask the brain to do. A lot of clients, if we get past that 30-minute mark, their brain's going to get rather tired and it won't train as well. So generally, most of our clients will be 30 minutes. However, you may run into situations where you need to decrease that time. This could be somebody with a head injury, somebody that's very sensitive, or it could be maybe even a kiddo that, based off conversation with the parents, we know that at least in the beginning, this kid might only be able to sit still for 15 minutes. So you can adjust those times accordingly. And then the last one down here is the training plan name. Now, as you build the training plan over in this right-hand section, it will start auto-populating a name. So you can see there, as I clicked on eyes open, it's placing that as the start of the name. If I chose eyes closed, it would start the name with eyes closed. And then as we pick protocols, it'll add information to that plan name. And then once your plan is built, before you save it, if you wanted to change the name, you could. I wouldn't recommend putting a name in there until you've got it all built, because the software will start auto-populating that, and you'll just have to go back and change it later anyways. So let's start with a one-channel protocol. Okay, so if we leave this channel count at 1, and then we come up here and click the drop-down for the available one-channel protocols, we can see that we could create a custom protocol of our own, which means we would be picking the frequency ranges, whether that's just, let's say, a single frequency. Maybe we want delta, and they're picking the 1 to 3 hertz range, and then we want to bring that down in power. And we can add another filter. Maybe we want to do, say, low beta up. We can see up there. And then we would need to tell it the location. So generally, maybe a protocol like this would be more of like an SMR at CZ. So we're doing a custom protocol with the SMR range. Now you can also just choose, let's say you want to just do SMR up. We have SMR up, high beta down, SMR up, theta down, and we have low beta up, high beta down, low beta up with a theta coming down. Then we see here's our alpha theta protocol. We have our peak alpha, and we also have proportional tones with alpha down. So these are all of the options that we have at our disposal if we chose a one channel. Now let's switch to a 2-channel. So this is another very common training plan you'll be building. So if we go off the map that we were looking at, let's go ahead and build this protocol 19 at FP1 and FP2. Okay, so that's the only information I need here to build a training plan is the protocol number and the training sites where we'll be putting our sensors. Right, so we needed protocol 19 based off what the map said. So we'll come up here, get our menu. And again, you'll see that option. You can create a custom protocol, just like with the one channels. Now we see we've got a list here. It's all numbered. It's going from 1 through 24. So the very first number here is the protocol number that is going to match up with this protocol number. So to build a training plan using that protocol 19, we're going to click our drop-down menu. We're just going to go down the list and click on 19. Now, I do want to explain the rest of this because some people get confused. They don't understand what this is. So what this is telling us is the first number, again, is protocol 19. Now, this sequence up to the /, this is what we're going to be adjusting in the left hemisphere of the brain. So this is 9 to 11, that's hertz, so that's alpha down. Then 15 to 20, that's mid beta, and we're bringing that up in power. Now everything after that / is your right hemisphere. So 21 to 30 down, that's high beta, coming down in power. And then here we see 9 to 11 again, so that's alpha, and we're bringing that up in power. Now all of that information is also what you're going to see here. So there's the left hemisphere, there's the right. So the software is just letting you know that that's exactly what you're going to be doing. And this is also helpful. The longer you're doing neurofeedback and you're looking at a map and maybe trying to come up with a different protocol. And this way you can come into your list and see exactly what each protocol is programmed to do, so you could pick the most appropriate one based off your client's needs. So we're going to come down, we'll choose that protocol 19, and we can see our software has auto-populated our frequencies, what direction they're all going. And then, so what we would need to do at this point is let the software know where we're going to be placing our sensors. So that was FP1, and we can see over here, it's auto-populating the homogeneous site, which is FP2. I'm going to move this back to open. So I talked about this training plan name. So now you can see it's auto-populated that. So it's telling us we're doing protocol 19 at FP1 and FP2 with the client in the eyes open position. And that's all we need for a name. If you wanted to change that, at this point, you could go ahead and change that, and then we could save this for the client. Now, before I do that, let's move to the next one. And let's say we wanted to run a 4-channel protocol. And that would be if we wanted to run both of the recommended protocols. So the secondary protocol is protocol 18 at 01 and 02. So if I wanted to switch to a 4-channel, I would check or click on the box that says 4 for the channel count. So that first one again was 19 at FP1 and FP2. And then channel 3 and channel 4, go back and double check ourselves, that was 18 at 01 and 02. So we would come down and pick 18 and 01 and 02. So now we've got a 4-channel built. I'm just going to leave this as a 2-channel. So we'll come back to 2-channel, and every time you move your channel count, it will erase what's here. So we'll have to go back and put everything back in. So there we go. And we can review this before we save it, so we can see that this particular protocol is going to be assigned to that test client of ours. We're doing a standard neurofeedback session using a 2-channel approach. The patient will be in the eyes open state. We've chosen a standard 30-minute session time. We can confirm our name all looks correct. And then up here, just confirm that everything looks as it should. And at this point, we are good. And we could then save this for our client. Now with the Pro software subscription, if you have multiple systems in your office, then this training plan is going to auto-populate across all your computers. So this saved plan would move from the computer you built it on, it would go to the cloud, and then from the cloud, it would be added to all of your computers. Now, if you built this plan and you had other systems that were, or other software that was still logged in, to see that plan, you would have to close the software out and then open it and re-log in, so then it can grab that from the cloud. So the software only syncs with the cloud when you open it. Once the software is open, it will not sync that new data down if you built a new training plan on another computer. So just keep that in mind. All right, so now we can see the saved training plan we just created. So again, we can just review that. We can see it's a 2-channel, FP1 and FP2. We can see up here is our name, channel, so protocol 19, eyes open, FP1, FP2. Now there's some other options here. We can see results. So as you run more and more sessions on the client, you will be able to view the history. So These graphs will be populated with what happened during that session, what did their brain activity do. You'll have lines that are going to be broken down into all the major frequency bands. So that's your results. And you can also track asymmetry and activation up here. And the next one down, that was the protocol tab we initially came to after we saved it. I'm going to come back to home training, the calendar option. This is just going to plot every session they've done. So if you just need to get a visual of what days they've been training, how many days a week they've been training, you'll see little dots appear. So if it was a home training session, it'll be a green dot. And then you've got the blue dot would be your in-office. And then you can jump back and forth month to month if you want to see all the days they trained in a month. Down at the bottom, if we click on plan info, this is just kind of telling us what we've got here. So again, it's just reminding us our plan name, the date we created it on, what client this is assigned to, and then status here. So currently this is set as an active plan. If we move the slider back to the left, then this is going to make that plan inactive. So this is a way you can use this active inactive to kind of sort through your training plans. And so if you've already ran the necessary amount of sessions with a specific protocol and you're moving on to something new with a client, you could go into the last protocol, come to plan info here and mark it as inactive. That way you can filter it out and doesn't clutter up all your training plans. Put it back to active. And then you also have the option of deleting the plan. So let's say you built the plan and something happens, change your mind on what you want to start, or maybe the client all of a sudden has to move before they can even start training. We can come in and delete that plan, again, just to declutter, so we can so we're only seeing what's active and the clients that are currently training. All right, so this is everything to get it set up for in-office training. Now there's also the option to allow your patients to train at home. Now, of course, to do this, you would need to purchase a 2-channel amplifier and leads, and you would also need a laptop computer to provide them. And then to set this up for a home training plan, it's really easy. We would just come to the home training tab, move the slider over. Now we can see that this is marked as an active home plan. We would need our feedback options. So here is, just, let's say, eyes open watching a video. We could have it just the screen fading. We could set it for audio fading, screen and audio fading, or tones. Now, some people think that if they check multiple options that every form of feedback is going to be used. And that's not how it's going to work. How it will work, though, is when your client logs into the home training software, they will get to a point in the software that asks them which one of these 4 would they like to use that day during their training session. So they could pick one of the 4. They can't pick multiples. So maybe you want to give them the option of either just screen fading, just audio fading, or both screen and audio. So if you had it set up with these 3 items turned on, then the patient can choose which one they would like to do. If you only want them to have the option of one form of feedback, then you would just leave whichever one it is activated and all the other 3 would be deactivated. Below that, we see auto artifacting level. It's generally recommended to leave it at the default setting of moderate and 75%. However, we do have options to increase that all the way to 100 or to decrease it down to a medium, low, or off. Normally moderate is good for most of your patients. However, if you get a client, maybe they've got tremors, and we're talking like Parkinson's patient, they kind of shake a little bit, which they're naturally going to create more artifact. We may need to turn this down. If you're training kiddos that are squirming around a little in the chair too much, you may need to lower that down as well, so the session actually runs for them. If the auto artifacting level is set too high, so let's say a kid that's moving a bit, you'll see while their session's running that the software just kind of pauses and waits for them. We do that purposely, so they're only training based off their actual good normal brain activity, and we're not trying to train the artifact in them. Right. And then on the upper right, with this, the session results turned on. At the end of a home training session, the client would actually get to see how well they did that day. So as a practitioner, you'll need to make that determination if that is going to be beneficial or not for each individual client. For some clients, it can be really good for them. It just gives them that constant pat on the back. They can see that they're improving and getting better, session after session. For other clients, it may not be as helpful. And we have to understand that, sometimes somebody might just had a bad sleep the night before. And if they didn't sleep well, that will reflect in their brain activity. We're generally going to see an increase of that slow wave frequencies, which means their results that particular day might not show up that good, which in some cases can put our clients in a little bit of a panic mode, thinking they're backsliding or they're not getting better, or even worse, the things are getting worse. So you'll just need to make that determination on a client-by-client basis, whether you feel seeing results at the end is going to be beneficial or not to them. And then the last option here is progress tracking. Now, you'll see currently I don't have the option to activate this, and that is simply because I have yet to build a progress tracker for this test client. That video will be part 6 in this series, and then we'll come back to the software after we go through how to build a progress tracker and just remind you how to get that activated. Right, so if you wanted to leave this as a home training plan, we could click Save here. Or if we didn't want it to be a home training plan, we could just deactivate it. Now, I also want to say with home training, you will need to buy credits for each individual client. So if we click on that, we can see we have 2 options that we can pick from. And they kind of walk you through it here. So unlimited training each week is great for training over 3 times a week. And then we have a per use credit, which is purchased by a session, great for training less than 3 times a week. So if you pick the unlimited, let's say this client has told you they have the ability to do a session. They're going to do maybe 5 sessions a week every day and maybe take the weekend off. And then you would want to purchase the unlimited for them versus maybe a client who says, yeah, at the maximum I'm going to be able to hook myself up is twice a week just based off their schedule. Then we could just buy them credits. You can buy as many as you want, as little as you want, but you would purchase the sessions for them at the marked price, and then you would determine yourself what you're going to charge the client for those sessions. So that's completely up to you. So if I come up here, I can hit the back button, and I'm just going to go ahead and deactivate that as a home training plan. And now I'm just going to save it. All right, now if we come back to this far left side of the screen and click on all plans, we can see the plan we just created. And I can close this out. So this is what you would see when you logged into your software. And then to run this session, then we would just find the client. We could click on that training plan, and now over here we see start session. And if we can give it just a second, it'll pull that session up and be ready for us. Okay. And here you can see I don't have an amplifier plugged in, so it's telling me that we're in demonstration mode or simulation mode for demonstration purpose only. All right, so I'm going to end this part here. I will do another chapter, and we'll spend some time going through what's on this screen and how we're going to use everything on this screen to our advantage and to help us track our clients' progress. So thank you for taking some time out of your day and joining us in this training series.